I never intended to become the center of a family war. 3 months ago, I was just a regular software developer with a comfortable life in Portland. Now I'm the person my in-laws whisper about when they think I'm not listening. The one they're trying to manipulate out of an inheritance they didn't even know existed until recently. My name is Alex Morgan, and I discovered that family loyalty has a price tag, one my father-in-law was all too willing to put on display. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Just sign the papers, Alex. It's what's best for everyone involved. Howard Bennett's voice carried from the study of his Riverfront Estates home. I froze in the hallway, gift bag clutched in my hand. I'd arrived early for Sunday dinner to surprise Rebecca with concert tickets for our anniversary. He's being stubborn about this, Howard. I told you he would be. That was Tyler, my brother-in-law, always eager to align with his father's opinions. Well, he needs to understand what's at stake here. The Peterson property holdings would complete our Cascade development. Without them, we lose the investors. Besides, what does a computer guy need with real estate anyway? I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. The Peterson property holdings they were discussing so casually had belonged to my grandmother Eleanor, my last living relative until she passed away 3 months ago. The inheritance wasn't supposed to be accessible until her trust fully executed on my 35th birthday, still 3 years away. Rebecca says he hasn't even read through all the trust documents yet, probably doesn't understand what he's sitting on. Howard's dismissive tone made my blood boil. If he signs the transfer paperwork tomorrow, we can still make this work. The family needs to present a united front. A united front. That's what Howard always talked about at family gatherings. The Bennetts stick together. The Bennetts support each other's ventures. The Bennetts put family first. Apparently, that family unity had a condition. As long as Howard was the one benefiting. What if he starts asking more questions? Tyler. Again, sounding nervous. About the original trust conditions? He won't. Rebecca will make sure of it. She understands what this means for the family business. My wife's name hit me like a physical blow. Rebecca was involved in this? The same woman who'd encouraged me to take time processing my grief before making any decisions about the inheritance? And if that doesn't work, Howard continued, lowering his voice, there's always the backup plan. The documents Megan prepared. I'd heard enough. Backing away quietly, I slipped out the side door and sat in my car, staring at the elegant, 2-story house with its manicured lawn and perfect facade. Just like the Bennett family image, flawless on the outside, rotten at the core. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Where are you? Everyone's arriving for dinner. I started the engine. Not feeling well. Heading home. Talk later. As I drove away from Riverfront Estates, my grandmother's last words echoed in my mind. The trust will protect you, Alex, but only if you protect it first. At the time, I thought she was being dramatic, a quirk of old age. Now I wondered what she'd known that I was only beginning to discover. The drive home gave me time to think, but not enough time to process the betrayal. Rebecca and I had been married for 5 years. We'd met in college, built a life together, even talked about starting a family soon. Had it all been part of Howard's long game? A way to eventually access my family's assets? When Grandma Eleanor died, the Bennetts had seemed supportive. Howard offered to have his company lawyers look over her will as a favor to family. Diane brought food and checked on me daily. Tyler and Megan offered to help sort through Eleanor's belongings. Their concern seemed genuine, until the details of her estate became clear. Eleanor Peterson hadn't just left me her modest house in Cedar Heights. She'd left a substantial trust that included commercial properties in 3 states, a mountain, retreat in the Cascades, and controlling interest in the Peterson Educational Foundation. The revelation had surprised me as much as everyone else. Grandma had always lived modestly, giving no indication of her wealth. I pulled into our driveway and sat there, engine off, trying to decide what to do next. The house lights were off. Rebecca was still at her parents' place, unaware that I'd overheard everything. My phone buzzed again with a call from her, but I let it go to voicemail. I needed evidence before confrontation. Inside, I went straight to the home office and opened the safe behind the bookshelf. The trust documents were there, still in the envelope from the executor. I'd been so overwhelmed with grief that I'd barely skimmed them, trusting Rebecca when she said we had time to review everything properly. 3 hours and 4 cups of coffee later, I understood why Howard was so eager for me to sign the simple transfer paperwork he'd prepared. Eleanor's trust explicitly prohibited selling any of the properties until 10 years after her death, unless the proceeds went directly to expanding the educational foundation. The Cascade property Howard coveted was specifically designated to become a nature education center. My phone had accumulated 6 missed calls and several increasingly concerned texts from Rebecca. Finally, I texted back, "Working through some things. Don't wait up." Her response came immediately. "Alex, what's going on? Dad said you left without saying anything. Are you okay?" I didn't answer. Instead, I called the one person I knew I could trust implicitly. "Nathan, it's Alex. I need your help with something sensitive. Can you come over?" Nathan Chen and I had been friends since college. He'd gone into cybersecurity while I pursued software development. If anyone could help me navigate this situation and verify what I was suspecting, it was him. "Give me 20 minutes, he said, no questions asked. While waiting, I searched for more information. Hidden in the middle of the trust document was a sealed letter with instructions to open it in case of any disputes over the estate. My hands shook as I broke the seal. "Dear Alex," it began in my grandmother's familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, something has made you question the intentions of those around you. Trust your instincts. There are people who have been watching the Peterson assets for years, waiting for an opportunity. Your grandfather and I built everything legitimately, but others have tried to use shortcuts. The flash drive in this envelope contains documentation that may help you understand who you can trust. Remember that true family is defined by actions, not blood or marriage certificates. All my love, Grandma Eleanor." Inside the envelope was a small flash drive. I was staring at it when the doorbell rang. Nathan took one look at my face and said, "This is bad, isn't it?" I nodded, letting him in. "I need to know what's on this drive, but I'm afraid of what I'll find." "Then let's find out together," he said, taking the drive and plugging it into his laptop rather than mine. "Just in case there's anything malicious on here." The drive contained hundreds of files, financial records, emails, photos, and recorded conversations, all meticulously organized and dated. Eleanor had been gathering evidence for years. "Your grandmother was running counterintelligence," Nathan said, impressed. "Look at this. Emails between Howard Bennett and investors discussing a long-term acquisition strategy for the Peterson properties. Dating back 7 years ago." I felt sick. That's when Rebecca and I started dating. Nathan gave me a concerned look but continued scrolling. "There's more. Financial records showing how Bennett Development has been struggling for the past decade. They've been over-leveraged on several projects. According to these projections, without new developments on the scale of what your family's properties would allow, they're heading for serious trouble. So this whole time, I don't know what your wife's involvement is," Nathan said carefully, "but her family has definitely been planning this for years. The question is, what are you going to do now?" My phone buzzed again. "Rebecca, coming home now. We need to talk." I showed Nathan the message. "I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before she gets here." Then let's see what else Grandma Eleanor left you, he said, opening another folder labeled Bennett Connections. What we found shook me to my core. Photos of Howard meeting with city officials who later approved his controversial developments. Records of payments to shell companies that traced back to the same officials. Environmental reports that had been altered to facilitate permits. Alex, Nathan said quietly, your father-in-law isn't just after your inheritance. Based on these documents, he's been involved in some seriously questionable business practices, and if he gets control of your grandmother's properties, he'll use them to bail out his company and continue the same practices, I finished. We heard a car pull into the driveway. Nathan quickly copied the files to his secure cloud storage. Whatever happens, we have backups now. Call me anytime, day or night. After Nathan slipped out the back door, I sat in the darkened living room, waiting. Rebecca entered, flipping on the lights and jumping when she saw me. Alex, you scared? Me? What's going on? Why have you been ignoring everyone's calls? I studied my wife's face, the person I'd shared everything with for 5 years. Was she an active participant in her father's schemes, or just another pawn? I went to your parents' house early, I said carefully. I overheard an interesting conversation between your father and Tyler. Her expression flickered, concern, then something like resignation. What did you hear? Enough to know that tomorrow's meeting isn't about reviewing the trust options. It's about pressuring me to sign away my inheritance to bail out Bennett Development. Rebecca sat down heavily on the couch across from me. It's not like that, Alex. Dad's company is going through a rough patch. The family needs to stick together through this. The properties would still benefit everyone, including us. Including us? Or including your family's business? I pushed the trust documents toward her. Did you know about these conditions? That the properties can't be sold for development? She looked away. Dad said those conditions could be reworked. With the right legal approach. The right legal approach, I repeated. You mean the documents Megan prepared? What exactly did she prepare, Rebecca? Forged paperwork? Altered trust conditions? You don't understand how important this is. Rebecca's voice rose. Bennett Development isn't just a company. It's our family legacy. My grandfather built it from nothing. If it fails, we lose everything. And that justifies manipulating me? Using our marriage as a way to access my grandmother's estate? Her silence was answer enough. How long, Rebecca? How long have you known about this plan? She stared at her hands. Dad approached me after we got engaged. He said it was just good business sense to unite the family's assets eventually. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. It wasn't supposed to be like this, so rushed, so desperate. But you went along with it, I said, the reality sinking in. All these years. I love you, Alex. That was never fake. But I love my family too. Can't you understand that? Stood up, suddenly needing distance. I'm not attending that meeting tomorrow. You have to! Panic edged her voice. Dad's investors are expecting an answer. If you don't sign, then what? What's the backup plan Howard mentioned? The one involving Megan's documents? Rebecca's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. But I could see in her eyes that she did. Whatever they had planned, it was serious enough to frighten her. I'm staying at a hotel tonight, I said, grabbing an overnight bag I kept ready for work trips. I need time to think. Alex, please. Rebecca reached for my arm, but I pulled away. I trusted you, I said simply, with everything. As I packed essentials, Rebecca hovered in the doorway. What are you going to do? It was a loaded question. Was she asking as my concerned wife or reporting back to Howard? I'm going to honor my grandmother's wishes, I said. Beyond that, I haven't decided. The look that crossed her face confirmed everything. This wasn't just about money or property. There was something more. Something in the trust that truly frightened the Bennetts. I left Rebecca standing in our bedroom, staring after me with tears streaming down her face. Were they genuine? After 5 years of marriage, I could no longer tell. In the car, I called Nathan again. I need a secure place to stay and time to go through everything Eleanor left. My guest room is yours, he said without hesitation. And Alex? Bring all the original documents. Don't leave anything they could alter or destroy. As I drove, through the darkening streets of Portland, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from Howard, Tyler, even Diane, all expressing concern about my behavior and stressing the importance of tomorrow's meeting. A voicemail from Megan about documents that need your immediate attention. I switched off my phone and focused on the road ahead. Whatever game the Bennetts were playing, I was no longer a willing participant. Grandma Eleanor had tried to warn me, to prepare me for this moment. Now I needed to understand exactly what she'd been protecting, and why the Bennetts wanted it so badly. Nathan was waiting outside his apartment building when I arrived, helping me quickly unload my bags and the box of documents. "Your in-laws have resources," he warned as we rode the elevator. "If they're as desperate as these files suggest, they might not stop at manipulation." "You think they'd go further?" Nathan's expression was grim. "People rarely show their true faces until money and power are on the line. Let's make sure we're prepared for whatever comes next." Inside his apartment, we set up what Nathan jokingly called Operation Trust Fall, spreading documents across his dining table and setting up secure systems to analyze everything Eleanor had collected. "Your grandmother was thorough," Nathan said, examining a spreadsheet of property valuations. "According to this, the total value of the trust assets is well over $15 million. No wonder Howard's salivating." But as we dug deeper into the files, we discovered something unexpected. The most valuable asset wasn't the real estate at all. It was a patent portfolio held by the Peterson Educational Foundation. Patents that related to educational technology, including several that were currently being used by major tech companies. "These licensing agreements generate millions annually," I said, stunned. "All going directly to educational programs and scholarships." Nathan whistled. "And control of the foundation passes to you at 35, according to the trust." That's what this is really about. The real estate is just a bonus. They want the foundation and the patent portfolio. A document labeled Bennett Development Project Horizon confirmed our suspicions. Howard had been planning to pivot his struggling real estate company into tech investment, using the Peterson patents as leverage to attract new capital. As midnight approached, my phone, which I'd turned back on briefly to check for any genuine emergencies, rang with a call from an unexpected source, Olivia Santos, the family attorney who had executed Eleanor's will. "Alex, thank goodness. Are you all right? Rebecca called me frantic, saying you'd disappeared with trust documents." I put the call on speaker so Nathan could hear. "I'm safe, Olivia. Just needed space to review everything properly. There seems to be a lot of pressure to make decisions quickly." Olivia's voice turned serious. "Don't sign anything, Alex. There are irregularities I've been investigating. Someone requested copies of the trust documents last month, and I have reason to believe they may be preparing alterations." "Megan Bennett," I said. "She's preparing something for tomorrow's meeting." "The paralegal," Olivia confirmed. "She's requested information about challenging trust conditions based on mental competency of the grantor." Ice formed in my stomach. They're going to claim Grandma Eleanor wasn't mentally competent when she established the trust conditions. It appears that way. I've been gathering evidence to counter such claims, but I wasn't sure who I could trust. Your grandmother warned me there might be attempts to circumvent her wishes. "Can you meet us?" I asked. "I have files Eleanor left that you should see." We arranged to meet Olivia at her office early the next morning, before the scheduled Family meeting at Lakeside Country Club. As I ended the call, Nathan handed me a cup of coffee. Try to get some rest, he advised. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. But sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's face, heard Howard's confident voice discussing me as if I were merely an obstacle to overcome. How had I missed the signs all these years? Around 3 a.m., my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. The children don't know anything. Please remember that. Diane. My mother-in-law had never reached out to me independently before. What did she mean? Which children? Zoe and Jake? Tyler's kids? Was this some kind of threat or a genuine plea? I showed the message to Nathan, who was still awake and analyzing financial records. Could be a trap to get you to respond and track your location, he warned. Or could be genuine concern. Either way, save it as evidence. By dawn, we had assembled a clear picture of what we were facing. Howard Bennett's company was 3 months away from defaulting on major loans. The Cascade property he wanted from my inheritance was positioned to secure a bailout from investors, but only if development could begin immediately. Additionally, control of the Peterson Foundation would give him access to technology licensing revenue that could transform his failing real estate business into a tech investment firm. To achieve this, he needed my cooperation, or he needed to invalidate the trust conditions by proving Eleanor was mentally unfit when she created them. They've been planning this for years, Nathan said as we gathered our evidence for the meeting. With Olivia. The question is, how far are they willing to go? I stared at the family photo still in my wallet, Rebecca and me on our wedding day, surrounded by smiling Bennetts. Had it all been a calculation? A business strategy disguised as family connection? I guess we're about to find out, I said, putting the photo away and picking up my grandmother's files. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Eleanor. Peterson had spent her life building something meaningful, and I wouldn't let it be dismantled for Howard Bennett's ambition. As we headed to meet Olivia, dawn broke over Portland, painting the sky in shades of promise. Whatever truth awaited, I was finally ready to face it. The morning light cast long shadows as Nathan and I hurried into Olivia Santos's downtown office building. The evergreen building stood in stark contrast to the older architecture surrounding it, all glass and steel, much like Howard Bennett himself. Imposing, transparent on the surface, but with structural secrets hidden within. You look exhausted, Olivia said when we entered her office on the 12th floor. She was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s who had worked with my grandmother for over 20 years. Today, concern had etched additional lines around her eyes. I haven't slept, I admitted, setting down the box of documents and flash drive. But I've learned more in the last 12 hours than in 5 years of being part of the Bennett family. Olivia locked her office door and closed the blinds. Show me what you've found. Nathan set up his laptop, and for the next hour we walked Olivia through everything. The overheard conversation, Eleanor's secret files, the financial troubles, plaguing Bennett development, and the apparent plan to challenge the trust's validity. This confirms my suspicions, Olivia said, examining the records of Howard's meetings with city officials. Eleanor came to me last year, concerned about unusual inquiries into her foundation's patent portfolio. Someone was probing for weaknesses. Howard, I said. Most likely. But what troubles me most is this. She pulled out a legal document from her briefcase. This was filed yesterday with the probate court. A petition challenging Eleanor Peterson's mental capacity at the time the trust was amended 3 years ago. The petition was signed by Rebecca Morgan, my wife, claiming that her close relationship with Eleanor gave her unique insight into the deterioration of her mental faculties. My hands shook as I set the document down. She's never even mentioned concerns about Grandma's mental state to me. Eleanor was sharp until the end, Everyone who knew her would testify to that. That's why they needed Rebecca's statement, Olivia explained. As your wife, her testimony carries significant weight. She claims Eleanor confided in her about memory issues, confusion, and paranoia, specifically paranoia about her assets. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Rebecca had been actively constructing a case against my grandmother's competency, all while comforting me through my grief. The hearing is scheduled for next month, Olivia continued. If successful, it would invalidate the amendments Eleanor made restricting the sale of properties and establishing the Educational Foundation's independence, putting everything under my control, I realized, which they expect to control through me. Precisely. The original trust from 15 years ago was much simpler, with fewer restrictions on how assets could be used. That's what they want to revert to. Nathan, who had been examining the petition closely, looked up. There's something odd here. The medical evidence they're citing comes from visits to a Dr. Wilson in the months before Eleanor's death. But according to these records, he gestured to his laptop, Eleanor's doctor was Dr. Martinez for the past decade. Olivia's expression darkened. This is concerning. We need to contact Dr. Martinez immediately and get Eleanor's full medical records. As she reached for her phone, my own buzzed with an incoming call. Zoe Bennett, my 12-year-old niece. I hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. Uncle Alex? Zoe's voice was hushed, almost a whisper. Are you coming to Grandpa's meeting today? I'm not sure, Zoe. Why are you calling from your mom's phone? She left it when she went, to talk to Grandpa. They're all at our house and they're saying weird things about you. Dad said you're trying to destroy the family business. My heart sank. Tyler and Megan were already poisoning their children against me. That's not true, Zoe. It's complicated adult stuff. That's what they always say when they don't want to explain. Her voice carried the unique skepticism of preteens everywhere. But I heard more. Mom was on the phone with someone talking about Grandma Eleanor's medical records. She said they needed to finalize the narrative before you could dig too deep. What does that mean? Nathan and Olivia exchanged alarmed looks. Zoe, this is very important, I said carefully. Do you remember Dr. Martinez? The lady doctor who came to check on Grandma Eleanor a few times when you visited her with me? Yeah, she always gave me and Jake stickers. She came to the funeral too. Did you ever meet another doctor? Maybe an older man? No. Wait. Mom and Dad took me and Jake to this office once. They said it was a doctor who needed to ask us questions about Great-Grandma Eleanor. He asked if she ever forgot our names or got confused. Dad kept giving us these looks when we said no. My blood ran cold. They had tried to coach the children into providing false testimony. Zoe, I need to go now, but thank you for calling me. You didn't do anything wrong. Uncle Alex? Are you and Aunt Rebecca getting divorced? Jake heard Mom and Dad talking about it. The innocent question caught me off guard. I don't know, Zoe. But whatever happens between adults, I'll always be your uncle. That won't change. Promise you'll still take us hiking? Dad always says he will, but then work gets busy. I promise. I have to go now. Put your mom's phone back exactly where you found it, okay? After the call ended, I looked at Olivia and Nathan. They're falsifying medical records and attempting to use children as witnesses, Olivia added, disgust, evident in her voice. This goes beyond aggressive estate planning. This is fraud. What's our next move? I asked. The meeting at Lakeside is in 3 hours, Nathan reminded us. They're expecting you to show up and sign their documents. And if I don't? They proceed with the competency challenge, Olivia said. But now we know they're fabricating evidence, which gives us leverage. I think I should go to the meeting, I decided. Let them present their case, their documents, get everything in the open. It's risky, Olivia cautioned. Howard is used to getting his way. If he realizes you're onto them. Actually, Nathan interrupted, studying his screen. It might be our best opportunity. I've been analyzing these financial records more closely. Bennett Development didn't just make questionable deals. They've been moving money through shell companies that trace back to that same Dr. Wilson who supposedly treated Eleanor. Money laundering, possibly tax evasion. That explains why they're so desperate, I said. It's not just about saving a failing business. It's about covering up financial crimes. Olivia looked thoughtful. We need more than suspicions. We need concrete evidence of the fraud, something that would stand up in court. The doctor, I realized. If we can prove Dr. Wilson falsified medical records for payment. I have contacts at the medical board, Olivia offered. And the original trust includes provisions for hiring investigators to protect its integrity. Eleanor was always thinking ahead. Nathan checked his watch. We have 3 hours until the meeting. I can keep digging into these financial connections, but we might need something more tangible to confront them with. A plan began forming in my mind. What if we give them exactly what they want, just not in the way they expect? For the next 2 hours, we worked feverishly, Olivia contacting Eleanor's real doctor to secure affidavits regarding her mental competency, Nathan tracing the money trail between Bennett Development and Dr. Wilson, and me preparing for a confrontation I never imagined having with the family I'd married into. My phone continued to buzz with messages. Rebecca, please come home. We can work this out together. Howard, son, I understand you're upset, but family stands together in hard times. This meeting is crucial for all our futures. Tyler, whatever you think you know, you don't have the full picture. Don't make a decision that hurts everyone, including Rebecca. Diane, the children are asking about you. Please consider them before you make any rash decisions. The message from Diane gave me pause. Her cryptic text from last night, combined with this appeal to consider the children, suggested she might not be fully aligned with Howard's schemes. Was there a potential ally within the Bennett family itself? As we prepared to leave for Lakeside Country Club, Nathan handed me a small recording device. Just in case. Oregon is a one-party consent state for recordings. Olivia gave me a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. Eleanor chose you as her trustee for a reason, Alex. She believed in your integrity, even if she had concerns about the influences around you. The drive to Lakeside took us through Portland's wealthiest neighborhoods, past homes that rivaled the Bennetts in grandeur. The country club itself was an exclusive retreat nestled against the water, its stone facade and manicured grounds, projecting old money and established power. Mr. Morgan, the valet greeted me by name as I pulled up. The Bennett party is in the Sequoia room. Of course they were, the most expensive private dining room where Howard conducted his most important business deals. I'll be monitoring things from my car in the parking lot, Nathan said, handing me a Bluetooth earpiece disguised as a hearing aid. If things get ugly, just say, I need to consider all perspectives, and I'll call with an emergency. Olivia would be arriving separately, timing her entrance for maximum impact. We'd agreed that surprise was our strongest advantage. The walk through Lakeside's hushed corridors felt surreal. Staff nodded respectfully, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see wealthy patrons enjoying lunch on the terrace, their lives untouched by the kind of betrayal waiting for me behind closed doors. I paused outside the Sequoia room, hearing the murmur of voices inside. Taking a deep breath, I adjusted the recording device in my jacket pocket and pushed open the heavy wooden door. The conversation stopped abruptly. Around the massive table sat the entire Bennett clan, Howard at the head, Diane to his right, Tyler and Megan across from them, and Rebecca, my wife, at the far end, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. Alex. Howard stood, fixing his face into a concerned fatherly expression. We were worried about you, son. Were you? I moved to the empty seat they'd left for me, directly opposite Howard, where I'd be facing the full pressure of his personality. I find that hard to believe, considering what I overheard yesterday. A flash of alarm crossed Howard's face before he recovered. You misunderstood a complex business discussion. If you'd stayed, we could have explained everything. I'm here now, I said, settling into the chair. Explain. Howard exchanged glances with Tyler, who nodded almost imperceptibly. A practiced routine. They'd rehearsed this. Bennett Development is facing a challenging transition period, Howard began smoothly. The real estate market is shifting, and we need to diversify our investments to secure the family's future, everyone's future, including yours and Rebecca's. Tyler jumped in. The properties in Eleanor's trust represent a unique opportunity. With the right development, they could triple in value within 5 years. Benefiting everyone, Megan added, her designer outfit and flawless makeup contrasting with the tension in her voice. I looked at each of them in turn. These people who had welcomed me into their family. Conditionally, it now seemed. Finally, my gaze settled on Rebecca. And what's your role in all this, Rebecca? Besides filing legal paperwork claiming my grandmother was mentally incompetent. She flinched as if I'd struck her. That's not... We're trying to simplify things, Alex. The trust conditions are unnecessarily restrictive. Unnecessarily restrictive, I repeated. Is that the legal terminology Dr. Wilson suggested when you took Zoe and Jake to his office? When you tried to coach them into saying Eleanor was confused? The color drained from Megan's face. You've spoken to the children? They're smarter than you give them credit for, I said. They know when adults are trying to manipulate them. Howard's mask of paternal concern hardened into something colder. That's enough. We're here to discuss business, not to throw around accusations. Let's discuss business then. I leaned forward. Bennett Development is 3 months from bankruptcy. You've been moving money through shell companies to hide losses and evade taxes. You need my inheritance to bail you out before your investors discover the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. Howard's complexion had turned an alarming shade of red. Where did you get that information? His voice was deadly quiet. Eleanor kept records of everything, including your approaches to her over the years, trying to pressure her into partnerships that would have given you control of her assets. Diane made a small, distressed sound. Howard silenced her with a look. Those are serious allegations, Alex, dangerous ones to make without proof. Oh, I have proof, I assured him. More than enough for the IRS, the SEC, and the State Medical Board, in Dr. Wilson's case. Tyler slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. You're threatening. Your own family based on some paranoid old woman's ramblings? Watch your mouth, I snapped, surprising even myself with the vehemence in my voice. That paranoid old woman built something lasting and meaningful, something she protected from people like you, who see others' work as something to appropriate. We can still resolve this as a family, Howard said, his businessman's instincts kicking in. Damage control. Whatever Eleanor told you, whatever you think you know, we can work through it together. By having me declared unfit to manage the trust? That was the backup plan, wasn't it? If I didn't sign willingly, you'd challenge my competency next. Rebecca looked genuinely shocked. What? No, that was never discussed. Wasn't it? I turned to her. Then why did Megan prepare those documents Howard mentioned? All eyes turned to Megan, who shifted uncomfortably. They were just contingency plans, standard legal precautions. There's nothing standard about falsifying medical records, I said, or about attempting to invalidate a legally executed trust based on lies. Howard stood abruptly. I think we need to take a step back. Clearly, Alex is upset and not thinking rationally. Perhaps we should reconvene when you've had time to destroy evidence? Create new falsified documents? No, Howard. We finish this today. The door opened and Olivia Santos entered, carrying her briefcase. Howard's expression darkened further. "This is a private family meeting," he said. "You weren't invited, Olivia." "I invited her," I said. "As the legal executor of Eleanor Peterson's estate, she has every right to be here, especially when discussing attempts to challenge the trust's validity." Olivia set her briefcase on the table with a decisive click. "I've just come from meeting with Dr. Martinez, Eleanor's actual physician for the past 12 years. She's provided a complete medical history and an affidavit confirming Eleanor. Peterson was of sound mind until her death. Additionally, I've filed emergency motions to protect the trust assets pending investigation of potential fraud." "This is outrageous," Howard sputtered. "You can't just—" "I've also," Olivia continued calmly, "notified the state medical board about Dr. Wilson's apparent willingness to create false medical histories. They're quite interested, especially given the financial connections between his practice and Bennett development subsidiaries." The room went utterly still. Then Diane did something unexpected. She began to laugh, a soft, almost relieved sound. "Thank God," she said, ignoring Howard's furious glare. "It's finally over." "Diane," Howard warned, "not another word." But 25 years of obedience had apparently reached its limit. "No, Howard. I'm done watching you destroy our family for your ambitions. I'm done with the lies, the manipulations, the constant pressure on everyone around you to prop up your ego and your failing business." She turned to me. "Alex, I tried to warn you last night. I knew Howard was desperate enough to do almost anything. I just couldn't bring myself to openly betray him. Not until now." Howard's face contorted with rage. "After everything I've built for this family—" "You built nothing," Diane cut in with surprising force. "Your father built Bennett Development. You've been riding his reputation while slowly dismantling his legacy with shortcuts and schemes. The children deserve better than to watch you drag the Bennett name through criminal proceedings." Rebecca had gone completely pale. "Criminal proceedings? Mom, what are you saying?" "Your father has moved well beyond aggressive business tactics," Diane said wearily. "The tax evasion started 3 years ago. Then came the bribes to city officials. I looked the other way, told myself it was just how business worked. But using the children, trying to steal from Eleanor's foundation, that's where I draw the line." Howard lunged for his wife, but Tyler intercepted him, pushing him back into his chair. "Dad, stop! You're making everything worse!" I sat in stunned silence, watching the Bennett family facade crumble completely. This wasn't how I'd expected the confrontation to go. I'd prepared for denials, for threats, for manipulative appeals to family loyalty, not for this implosion from within. "Is it true?" Rebecca asked her father, voice shaking. "Have you been breaking the law?" Howard's silence was answer enough. "The properties," Megan said suddenly. "We need them not just for development but to sell quickly, to cover the money that's been diverted before the quarterly audit." "Megan!" Tyler hissed, but the damage was done. "How much?" I asked. "How much has been diverted?" $3 million, Diane answered when no one else would. "That's what he's admitted to me. The real figure is probably higher." $3 million. Embezzled, hidden, now desperately needed before auditors discovered the fraud. Rebecca buried her face in her hands. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was this bad." Did I believe her? I wasn't sure. The woman I thought I knew would never have participated in criminal activity, but that woman wouldn't have filed false reports about my grandmother's mental state either. "Here are your options," Olivia said, addressing Howard directly. "Option 1, we proceed with the fraud investigation. The trust files formal complaints with all relevant authorities. Bennett Development faces criminal and civil penalties, and its officers, including you and Tyler, potentially face criminal charges." Howard's jaw clenched, but he remained silent. Option 2, she continued. You withdraw all challenges to Eleanor Peterson's trust. You resign from Bennett Development. The company undergoes restructuring under independent management. The diverted funds are repaid in full, plus penalties. No criminal charges, but you're removed from any position of financial control. You can't force me out of my own company, Howard growled. Actually, she can, Diane said. I own 51% of the shares. They were my father's before he died. I've simply allowed you to act as though the company was yours. This revelation seemed to shock even Tyler and Megan. The great Howard Bennett, master builder and business titan, had been operating on his wife's sufferance all along. Mom? Tyler looked bewildered. Is that true? Diane nodded. I kept quiet because family harmony seemed more important than asserting my rights. I was wrong. Howard stood again, his imposing figure now somehow diminished. This is all a bluff. You have suspicions, not proof. And you, he pointed at me, are throwing away a future with this family over a misunderstanding. I met his gaze steadily. No, Howard. I'm protecting my grandmother's legacy from people who see it as nothing but a resource to be exploited. The only one throwing away a future here is you. We have more than suspicions, Olivia added. Eleanor Peterson wasn't just keeping records. She was working with forensic accountants to document every irregularity. The evidence is comprehensive and has already been provided to my office. This wasn't entirely true. We were still assembling the financial trail, but Howard didn't know that. The flash of panic in his eyes told me Olivia's gambit had worked. I need time to consider these options, Howard said stiffly. You have 24 hours, Olivia replied. After that, we proceed with full legal action. The room fell into a tense silence. Then Megan suddenly gathered her designer purse and stood. I need some air. Sit down, Tyler ordered. We handle this as a family. Like you handled the falsified medical records? I asked. Or the coached testimony from children? That was Howard's idea. Megan snapped, her composure finally cracking. All of it, the fake doctor, the petition, everything. He promised it would save the company, secure our future. Now we're facing criminal charges? Megan, shut up, Howard barked, but she was beyond caring. No, I'm not going down for this. I have children to think about. The United Bennett front was disintegrating by the second. Alex? Rebecca said softly. Can we talk privately, please? I looked at my wife, the woman I'd built a life with, shared dreams with, trusted completely. Did I owe her a private conversation after her betrayal? Or was this another attempt at manipulation? Whatever you need to say, you can say here, I decided. Hurt flashed across her face, but she nodded. I filed that petition because Dad convinced me it was the kindest option. That challenging the trust directly would mean a long public legal battle that would stress you during your grieving. He said this way would be quicker, cleaner. And you believed that invalidating my grandmother's wishes based on lies was the kind option? I believed we were helping you, she insisted. You were so overwhelmed after Eleanor died, barely looking at the trust documents. Dad said they were unnecessarily complicated, that simplifying everything would relieve your burden while securing the family's future. Our family's future, I corrected. Not yours, mine. Eleanor's legacy isn't a resource for Bennett Development to exploit. Rebecca flinched at my tone. I love you, Alex. That's always been real. But I love my family too, and when they said they needed help. You chose them, I finished for her. You chose them over honesty, over integrity, over me. Tears spilled down her cheeks. What happens now? To us? It was the question I'd been avoiding since the moment I overheard Howard's conversation. What did happen now? Could a marriage survive this level of betrayal? Did I even want to try? I don't know, I answered honestly. Right now, my priority is protecting Eleanor's trust and foundation. The rest, we'll have to see. Howard had been watching our exchange with calculating eyes. The foundation, he said suddenly. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Not the properties, but the educational foundation and its patents. His business instincts had finally identified the true prize. The real estate was valuable, but the technology patents were the sustainable asset, generating ongoing revenue that would only grow as educational technology expanded. Eleanor built that foundation to support education, not to finance your lifestyle or bail out your business mistakes, I said. Think bigger, Alex, Howard urged, a hint of his charismatic persuasiveness returning. With the right management, those patents could be leveraged for 10 times their current value. We could transform education across the country, not just fund a few scholarships. By right management, you mean yourself? I mean professional business leadership, not academics and charity administrators. Even now, facing potential criminal charges, Howard Bennett couldn't help trying to sell a vision to negotiate a deal. It was almost admirable in a twisted way, the sheer persistence of his ambition. The foundation stays as Eleanor designed it, I said firmly. Independent of Bennett Development or any other commercial enterprise. Howard's expression hardened. Again. Then you're a fool, just like your grandmother, sitting on a gold mine and content to dig out a few nuggets at a time. Better that than strip mining it for quick profit until nothing remains, I shot back. The tension was interrupted by a knock at the door. A club employee entered, looking uncomfortable at the obvious hostility in the room. Excuse me, Mr. Bennett, but there are 2 gentlemen asking to speak with you. They say it's urgent. Something. About quarterly financial reviews? Howard went rigid. Tell them I'm in a meeting. I'll speak with them later. They were quite insistent, sir. They mentioned regulatory oversight. The auditors. They'd arrived early, perhaps tipped off by the unusual movement of funds we'd discovered. Howard's time had just run out. Tell them 5 minutes, Howard said, visibly struggling to maintain his composure. As the employee left, he turned back to us. This changes nothing. My offer stands. We can all benefit from consolidating these assets under professional management. And our options stand as well, Olivia replied. Resign and cooperate, or face full investigation. Howard looked around the table, searching for allies, but found none. Even Tyler looked away, unwilling to meet his father's gaze. The great Howard Bennett stood alone, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. 24 hours, he finally said. I'll have my decision then. Without another word, he strode from the room, straightening his expensive suit jacket as if heading into just another business meeting rather than a confrontation that might end his career. In his wake, the remaining Bennetts sat in stunned silence. The family that had presented such a united front just days ago now seemed broken beyond repair, each member isolated in their own version of the unfolding disaster. Diane was the first to speak. I'm sorry, Alex. I should have stopped this years ago. Why didn't you? I asked, genuinely curious. She sighed, suddenly looking every one of her 58 years. Because it's easier to look the other way than to admit you've built your life around someone capable of such deception, until you can't look away anymore. I understood that all too well, looking at Rebecca's tear-stained face across the table. What happens to the children? Megan asked, her earlier defiance replaced by genuine fear. If there are criminal charges? That depends on Howard's decision, Olivia said, and on how cooperative everyone is with returning misappropriated funds. Rebecca stood, her movements unsteady. I need some time to process everything. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak to her directly. The hurt was still too raw, the betrayal too fresh. As the meeting broke up, Nathan's voice came through my hidden earpiece. "You did it. Everything recorded clearly." A small victory, but it didn't feel triumphant. I'd protected Eleanor's legacy, but at what personal cost? As I watched my wife walk away without looking back, I wondered if there was any path forward that didn't end with complete estrangement from the family I'd married into. Tyler approached me hesitantly as the others filed out. "The kids," he said awkwardly. "Zoe and Jake. Whatever happens between the adults, they care about you." "I care about them too," I assured him. "That won't change." He nodded, relieved. For what it's worth, I didn't know about the falsified records. The business problems, yes, but not that other stuff. I didn't know whether to believe him, but it hardly mattered now. "Take care of your children, Tyler. They deserve better than to be pawns in adult games." Left alone with Olivia, I finally let my composed facade crack. What a mess. "Eleanor predicted something like this might happen," she said gently. "It's why she left you those records, why she structured the trust as she did. She saw Howard's interest in your relationship with Rebecca from the beginning." "Are you saying she thought my entire marriage was a setup?" The idea was too painful to contemplate. "No. She believed Rebecca genuinely loved you, but she also believed Howard would eventually try to use that love as leverage." Grandma Eleanor, perceptive until the end. Had she seen something in Rebecca that I'd missed? Or had she simply understood Howard Bennett better than I ever had? "What do you think Howard will do?" I asked. "He'll try to find a third option," Olivia said with the certainty of someone who had dealt with powerful men her entire career. "He won't accept resignation quietly, but he can't risk criminal charges. He'll look for leverage, for compromise." Should I be worried? She considered this. "Be cautious. Howard Bennett didn't build his reputation by accepting defeat gracefully, but we have the stronger position legally and ethically." As we left Lakeside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured grounds. Club members continued their rounds of golf, their tennis matches, their leisurely lunches, unaware of the drama that had just unfolded in the Sequoia Room. Life went on, unchanged for them. For me, everything had shifted. My marriage, my family connections, my understanding of the past 5 years, all called into question by a single overheard conversation and the evidence that followed. "What now?" I asked Nathan as we regrouped, in the parking lot. "Now we prepare for Howard's countermove," he said. "Because there will be one." I nodded, gazing back at the imposing country club building. The confrontation had gone better than expected in some ways, worse in others. Howard was cornered but not defeated. The Bennett family was fractured but not completely aligned against him. And Rebecca, my wife, my partner, the woman I'd planned a future with, where did her loyalties truly lie? With her father's ambitions? With our marriage? Or somewhere in between? "Eleanor trusted you to make the right decisions," Olivia reminded. "Me. Whatever comes next, remember that." As we drove away from Lakeside, I couldn't help feeling that this wasn't the end of the battle for my grandmother's legacy. It was just the beginning. Howard Bennett was wounded, but still dangerous. And the hardest choices, the most personal ones, still lay ahead. The true test wasn't just protecting Eleanor's assets. It was deciding what kind of person I wanted to be in the face of betrayal, and what kind of future I wanted to build from the broken pieces of trust. The Portland skyline glittered with early evening lights as I sat in Nathan's apartment, staring at the recording device that had captured everything at Lakeside. We'd been analyzing the audio for hours, planning our next moves, preparing for Howard's inevitable counterattack. "He's too quiet," Nathan said, pacing the living room. "It's been 8 hours since the meeting and nothing. No calls, no emails, No legal maneuvers we can detect. That's what worries me, I admitted. Howard Bennett doesn't just accept defeat and disappear. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. I'm staying at my parents' house tonight. We need time apart to think. I showed Nathan the message. At least she's being direct now. Or she's helping her father strategize, he pointed out. We can't assume anyone in that family is being genuine, especially after what we learned today. The revelation that Diane secretly owned controlling interest in Bennett Development had shocked everyone, including apparently Howard himself. The family's power dynamics weren't what they'd seemed, which made predicting their next moves even harder. Olivia's forensic accountants are still going through Eleanor's records, I said. But they've confirmed at least 2 are. $7 million in suspicious transfers from Bennett Development to offshore accounts. Howard wasn't just embezzling, he was preparing an escape plan. The question is whether he'll use it, Nathan replied. Fleeing. The country would mean abandoning everything he's built, admitting defeat. His reputation is already damaged. The auditors who showed up at Lakeside won't stay quiet. Even if he returns the money, the business community will know. My phone rang. Olivia Santos. Alex, we have a situation. Howard just filed an emergency motion with the probate court claiming you're mismanaging Eleanor's estate and requesting a temporary freeze on all assets. What? On what grounds? He's claiming you've refused reasonable family settlement discussions and are acting against the interests of potential beneficiaries. It's a desperate move, but it could tie things up for weeks while the court investigates. I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. Can he do that? I'm the named trustee. He's claiming Eleanor was manipulated into naming you sole trustee during a period of diminished capacity. It's the same argument they were building, with the falsified medical records just repackaged. So he's doubling down on fraud, essentially, but he's also trying another angle, claiming that as Rebecca's husband, you have a fiduciary responsibility to consider her interests in any decisions about family assets. We're talking about my grandmother's estate, not marital property. I know that, but it creates enough legal questions to potentially delay things. The hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I need you to come to my office first thing to prepare. After ending the call, I filled Nathan in on Howard's latest move. Classic Howard, Nathan said. When direct pressure fails, create legal complications. He's buying time. For what, though? What's his endgame here? The answer came 20 minutes later when my laptop chimed with an incoming email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "A reasonable solution." The email contained a single PDF attachment. I scanned it for malware before opening it, then read it aloud to Nathan. Alex, today's confrontation was unfortunate but perhaps necessary to clear the air. While emotions are running high, I believe we can still reach an arrangement that benefits all parties. I propose the following. 1. Bennett Development will withdraw all legal challenges to Eleanor's trust in exchange for a 10-year exclusive development agreement on the Cascade property. 2. The Peterson Educational Foundation will remain independent, but with a restructured board including equal representation from both families. 3. Rebecca will be appointed co-trustee, ensuring both sides of the family have input on major decisions. In return, I will personally ensure that all funds in question are returned to the company accounts before the completion of the audit. This approach preserves Eleanor's legacy while strengthening family bonds rather than severing them. Our families are connected now, Alex. Finding a path forward together is preferable to years of costly, painful legal battles. Howard Bennett. Nathan whistled. He's good. This sounds reasonable on the surface. But it gives him exactly what he wanted all along: control of the Cascade property and influence over the foundation. Plus, making Rebecca co-trustee means you couldn't make any major decisions without her agreement. He's essentially asking you to surrender control while making it sound like a compromise. I paced the room, thinking. The question is, why send this now? He filed the emergency motion with the court. Why follow with a settlement offer? Standard negotiating tactic, Nathan said. Create pressure, then offer a way to relieve it. The court motion is the stick. This proposal is the carrot. My phone rang again. Rebecca. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, putting it on. Speaker. Did you get Dad's email? She asked immediately. I did. Did you help him write it? No, she protested. I only found out about it when Mom mentioned it at dinner. Alex, I think you should consider it. It's a way to end this without destroying everything. Including your father's reputation? His freedom? She sighed. He's paying back the money. No one needs to know about the accounting. Irregularities. Irregularities? Rebecca, he committed fraud. He tried to falsify medical records. He attempted to use your nibblings as pawns in his schemes. He made mistakes, she admitted. Serious ones. But he's still my father. Still your father-in-law. Do you really want to see him prosecuted? What would that do to the family? To us? The manipulation was so transparent it would have been laughable if it weren't so painful. This isn't about punishing Howard, I said. It's about protecting Eleanor's legacy. And his proposal does that? The foundation stays independent. The properties remain in the trust. He's just asking for a development agreement and a voice at the table. His voice, his control, his profits, just like always. Rebecca's tone hardened. You're not being fair. This affects all of us. Me, Tyler, the kids. Are you really willing to tear apart an entire family over some rigid interpretation of what your grandmother wanted? Something in me snapped. My rigid interpretation? Eleanor spelled everything out explicitly because she knew exactly what Howard would try to do. She built protections into that trust because she understood his character better than I did. Better than you do, apparently. That's not... Rebecca, he used you. He used our marriage. He encouraged you to file false statements about my grandmother's mental state. And now you're still defending him? I'm trying to save what's left of our family, she cried, including our marriage, which you seem willing to throw away. The accusation stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. Our marriage was already compromised the moment you chose to participate in Howard's schemes rather than being honest with me. Silence stretched between us. Then quietly, I never meant to hurt you. I believe that, I said, surprised to find I actually did. But good intentions don't change what happened, or what's still happening. What do you mean? This proposal, the court filing, Howard's still trying to manipulate and control everything, and you're still helping him. That's not fair, she repeated, but with less conviction. Tell me honestly, if I reject this reasonable solution, what happens next? What has Howard planned? Her hesitation told me everything. I don't know exactly. But you know something. Another pause. He mentioned that public scandals hurt everyone involved, that the foundation's reputation would suffer if its trustee was involved in ugly family litigation. Threats now. Perfect. I rubbed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. Rebecca, I need to go. We'll talk tomorrow after the court hearing. Court hearing? What hearing? So she didn't know everything. Ask your father about the emergency motion he filed this afternoon, the one trying to freeze all the trust assets. Her shocked silence was the last thing I heard before ending the call. Nathan, who had been listening to the entire exchange, shook his head. She's torn. Between her husband and her father, I agreed, though it doesn't feel like much of a competition from where I'm standing. Don't underestimate the power of family dynamics established over decades, he warned. Rebecca grew up with Howard's manipulations. They're normal to her. The thought was depressing but rang true. How much of Rebecca's behavior was willing participation, and how much was the result of a lifetime under Howard's influence? My musings were interrupted by another call. Olivia again. "We've identified Dr. Wilson," she said without preamble. "His real name is Walter Jensen. He lost his medical license in California 3 years ago for falsifying records in workers' compensation cases. He's been working as a consultant ever since. Let me guess, for companies connected to Bennett Development?" "Exactly. We've traced payments totaling over $50,000 from one of Howard's shell companies to Jensen in the past 6 months. That's the smoking gun," I said. "Proof they were deliberately falsifying medical evidence. It gets better. Jensen kept records, names, dates, instructions. Apparently, he didn't trust Howard to protect him if things went south. And he's willing to talk? For immunity from prosecution, yes. I've already contacted the district attorney's office. They're interested, especially given the amounts involved in the financial fraud." This changed everything. With Jensen's testimony, Howard's position was even weaker than he realized. "What about the court hearing tomorrow?" I asked. "I was coming to that. Given this new evidence, I think we should go on the offensive. Instead of just defending against Howard's motion, we file for an immediate injunction prohibiting him from any further involvement with the trust or foundation. He'll fight it. Let him. With Jensen's evidence and the financial records, we have a strong case. And every time Howard files another motion or challenge, he digs himself deeper into potential criminal liability." After the call ended, Nathan and I strategized late into the night, planning for every contingency we could imagine. Howard was cornered, but that made him more dangerous, not less. We needed to be prepared for whatever desperate moves he might make. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Garage security footage from Evergreen Building. Thought you should see this." DZ'd attached was a video file. I played it cautiously, ready to shut it down if it seemed malicious. The footage showed the underground parking garage of the Evergreen Building, Howard's company headquarters. The timestamp indicated it was from just 2 hours ago. A figure moved through the dimly lit space, carrying boxes to a waiting SUV with tinted windows. The person's face became clear as they turned. Howard Bennett, loading what appeared to be files and possibly computer equipment into the vehicle. "He's destroying evidence," Nathan said, peering over my shoulder. "Or preparing to run," I added. "But who sent this? DZ?" We both reached the same conclusion simultaneously. Diane Ziegler Bennett. Howard's wife was now actively working against him. I texted back, "Thank you. Does he know you have access to this footage?" The response came quickly. "No, building security reports to me, not him. Always has. Be careful. He's not himself right now." I forwarded the video to Olivia with an urgent message explaining its source. Her reply was immediate. "Getting. Emergency court order now. We'll have police secure the building tonight." Events were moving faster than I'd anticipated. What had started as a family dispute over inheritance was rapidly escalating toward potential criminal charges. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. Howard deserved consequences for his actions, but this would affect the entire Bennett family, including innocent parties like Zoe and Jake. "You should get some rest," Nathan advised. "Tomorrow's going to be intense." But sleep proved elusive. I lay awake in Nathan's guest room, thinking about Rebecca. Had our entire relationship been built on false pretenses? I scrolled through photos on my phone. Our wedding day, vacations together, holidays. With both our families. Had she been reporting back to Howard all along? Feeding him information about Eleanor? About me? Or had she been caught in the middle, torn between loyalties to her husband and her domineering father? Around 3 a.m., another text came through. "Rebecca? Again." I just found out what Dad did with the doctor. I had no idea, Alex. I swear on everything I care about. We need to talk in person, please. I stared at the message, wanting to believe her. But trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. I replied simply, after the hearing. Morning came too quickly. Olivia met us at her office at 7 a.m., looking as if she hadn't slept either. Police secured the Evergreen building, she reported. They prevented Howard from removing more materials, but he'd already taken several boxes and at least one computer. They're looking for his vehicle now. Is he actually trying to flee? I asked. It's looking that way. His assistant reports he canceled all meetings for the week and mentioned a family emergency requiring travel. What about the court hearing? Still scheduled for 9 a.m. Howard's attorneys will be there regardless of whether he appears personally. We spent the next hour preparing, reviewing evidence, and planning our response to any arguments Howard's legal team might present. Just as we were preparing to leave for the courthouse, Olivia's phone rang. Her expression transformed as she listened. When? Are you certain? Yes, we'll be there immediately. She ended the call and turned to us. Change of plans. Howard was stopped at Portland International Airport, attempting to board a private flight to Vancouver. He had $250,000 in cash, a second passport, and multiple external hard drives. He's being detained for questioning. The news was shocking, but not entirely surprising. Howard had chosen the third option Nathan had predicted, running rather than facing either resignation or prosecution. What about the hearing? I asked. We're still going, but the dynamics have changed completely. Howard's flight attempt is essentially an admission of guilt. His attorneys will be scrambling to contain the damage. The courthouse was buzzing with activity when we arrived. News of Howard Bennett's airport detention had already leaked, and reporters clustered near the entrance, hoping for statements from anyone connected to the case. We bypassed them through a side entrance, meeting briefly with the district attorney's representative who had joined the case given the emerging evidence of financial crimes. As we entered the courtroom, I saw Rebecca sitting alone in the gallery, her face pale and drawn. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. Howard's high-powered legal team huddled near the front, their usual confidence visibly shaken. The lead attorney, Martin Grayson, approached Olivia before proceedings began. Ms. Santos, in light of recent developments, we'd like to request a brief continuance to confer with our client. Your client had plenty of time to confer before attempting to flee the country, Olivia replied coolly. We're proceeding as scheduled. When the judge entered and proceedings began, the atmosphere was tense. Grayson immediately moved to have Howard's emergency petition withdrawn. Your Honor, due to a miscommunication about the nature of family discussions, my client wishes to withdraw the petition questioning Mr. Morgan's management of the Peterson Trust. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, peered over her glasses. A miscommunication led your client to file sworn statements alleging mismanagement, and then attempt to leave the country with significant cash and electronic devices? Is that your position, Mr. Grayson? Grayson squirmed visibly. The circumstances of Mr. Bennett's travel are being misconstrued, Your Honor. He was simply, save it for the criminal proceedings, the judge cut in. This court's concern is the Peterson Trust and its assets. Ms. Santos, I understand you have a counter-petition? Olivia rose. Yes, Your Honor. Given Mr. Bennett's actions and the evidence we've assembled regarding his attempts to improperly influence the Trust's administration, we're seeking an injunction prohibiting him and his associates from any involvement with the Peterson Trust or Educational Foundation. On what grounds? Attempted fraud, Your Honor. We have evidence that Mr. Bennett orchestrated a scheme to falsify medical records regarding Eleanor Peterson's mental capacity, with the goal of invalidating trust provisions that restricted his access to assets. The judge's expression hardened. These are serious allegations. We have documentation and a cooperating witness, Your Honor. Dr. Walter Jensen, formerly known as Dr. Wilson, has provided a statement detailing payments received from Bennett development subsidiaries in exchange for creating false medical histories. Grayson jumped up. Your Honor, these allegations are completely unfounded and irrelevant to today's hearing. On the contrary, the judge replied, they speak directly to the question of whether Mr. Bennett should have any influence over the Peterson Trust. I'll review the evidence and witness statement in chambers. As the judge temporarily recessed to examine the materials Olivia provided, I noticed Rebecca slip out of the courtroom. I followed, finding her in the hallway, leaning against a wall with eyes closed. Rebecca, I said softly. She straightened, wiping away tears. He was really going to run. Leave us all to deal with the fallout. I'm sorry. Don't be. You tried to tell me who he really was. I just couldn't, or wouldn't see it. The moment felt fragile, balanced between reconciliation and further estrangement. Did you know about Dr. Jensen? About the falsified records? No, she said firmly. I knew Dad wanted me to file the petition questioning Eleanor's competency, but he told me it was based on real concerns shared by her friends and associates. I never imagined he was manufacturing evidence. I studied her face, searching for signs of deception. What about our marriage? Was that ever part of Howard's long-term strategy? Pain flashed across her features. How can you ask me that? I loved you. I still love you. Dad may have been happy about the connection to Eleanor's family, but he didn't arrange our relationship. But you never questioned his sudden interest in my grandmother's estate after we married? The convenient timing never struck you as odd? In hindsight, I should have seen the patterns, she admitted. But Alex, you have to understand. Growing up with Howard Bennett as your father means accepting a certain level of manipulation as normal. His schemes and angles were just how business worked. Everyone had ulterior motives in his world. It was a sobering reminder of how differently we'd been raised. My grandmother Eleanor had taught me that integrity wasn't negotiable. Rebecca had learned that everything was potentially a transaction. What happens now? She asked. To Howard? To us? Howard will likely face criminal charges. The evidence is too strong, and his attempt to flee makes him look even more guilty. And us? She repeated, her voice smaller. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't hurt one or both of us. I don't know, Rebecca. Trust is easy to break and hard to rebuild. But not impossible? A flicker of hope in her question. Before I could respond, Nathan appeared in the hallway. They're calling everyone back in. The judge has made her decision. Inside the courtroom, the tension had ratcheted even higher. Howard's attorneys looked grim, while Olivia appeared cautiously optimistic. The judge wasted no time once proceedings resumed. Having reviewed the evidence presented, I find sufficient cause to grant the injunction requested by the Peterson Trust representatives. Howard Bennett and all officers of Bennett Development are hereby prohibited from any involvement. With the Peterson Trust or Educational Foundation pending full investigation of the allegations raised today. She continued, her tone leaving no room for argument. Furthermore, I am freezing all Bennett Development corporate accounts pending review by forensic accountants. The evidence of financial irregularities is too substantial to ignore. Grayson attempted to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. Mr. Grayson, your client attempted to flee the jurisdiction with cash and data storage devices while under investigation. Save your arguments for the criminal proceedings, which I understand are now being prepared by the district attorney's office. With a bang of her gavel, the hearing was adjourned. Olivia turned to me, satisfaction evident in her expression. That couldn't have gone better if we'd scripted it ourselves. As we filed out of the courtroom, I spotted Diane speaking quietly, with a district attorney representative in the corner. Her role in exposing Howard's evidence tampering had clearly aligned her with the prosecution. Rebecca approached hesitantly. "Alex, can we talk now? Really talk?" I glanced at Nathan and Olivia, who both nodded encouragingly. "We'll handle the press inquiries," Olivia assured me. "Take the time you need." Rebecca and I found a quiet corner in a nearby coffee shop, away from the courthouse crowd. For several minutes, we sat in uncomfortable silence, the gap between us filled with unspoken accusations and regrets. "I've filed for separation from Howard," Diane announced as she joined us unexpectedly, sliding into a chair at our table. "After 36 years of marriage." "Mom, are you sure that's—" "It's long overdue," Diane cut her off. "I enabled his behavior for decades, Rebecca. Made excuses. Looked the other way. Not anymore." She turned to me. "Alex, I want you to know I never approved of Howard's schemes regarding Eleanor's estate. I should have spoken up sooner, been more direct in my warnings." "The text about the children," I remembered. "You were trying to tell me they were being used." She nodded. "I discovered Howard had taken Zoe and Jake to meet with Jensen. I was furious, but confronting Howard directly would have only made him more secretive. I thought warning you might help." "Why come forward now, though?" Rebecca asked. "Why turn over the security footage of Dad removing files?" Diane's expression hardened. "Because he crossed a line. Using the children was bad enough. Planning to abandon his family to save himself? Unforgivable." The conversation shifted to more immediate concerns: Howard's likely prosecution, the impact on Bennett Development and its employees, the future of the Peterson Trust. Diane revealed that she'd been quietly documenting Howard's financial maneuvers for over a year, suspecting he was engaging in increasingly risky behavior. "The company can survive without him," she said with surprising conviction. "It might even thrive once we eliminate the shortcuts and schemes." "You're taking control?" Rebecca asked, clearly surprised by this new side of her mother. "Someone has to. The Bennett name still means something in this community, despite Howard's best efforts to tarnish it." As Diane outlined her plans for the company's future, I was struck by the transformation. The seemingly compliant corporate wife had revealed herself as a shrewd businesswoman who had been watching and waiting for the right moment to act. When Diane excused herself to take a call, Rebecca and I were left alone again, the air between us still heavy with unresolved questions. "All these years," Rebecca said softly, "I thought I knew who my parents were, who I was in relation to them. Now everything's shifting." "People reveal their true selves in crisis," I observed. "Sometimes they surprise you." "Like my mother, the secret business mastermind?" She attempted a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Or like my father, the would-be fugitive?" "Or like you," I said. "The question is, who are you choosing to be in this moment, Rebecca? Now that Howard's influence is removed, now that the truth is out, who do you want to be?" She met my gaze directly for the first time since the courthouse. "Someone worthy of rebuilding trust, if that's even possible." It wasn't a promise or a solution to our fractured marriage, but it was perhaps a beginning, a first honest step toward whatever came next. My phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. "Howard has been formally charged. Press conference in an hour. How do you want to handle the Peterson Trust's public statement?" The question reminded me that while personal relationships might heal slowly over time, Eleanor's legacy needed immediate, decisive protection. Whatever happened between Rebecca and me, whatever became of Howard and Bennett Development, my responsibility to my grandmother's vision remained clear. "I need to go," I told Rebecca. "There's a press conference about Howard's charges. The trust needs to make a statement." "Of course." She nodded, understanding. "Your grandmother's legacy comes first." The simple acknowledgement of that priority, so different from her previous attempts to subordinate Eleanor's wishes to Bennett family interests, felt significant. As I stood to leave, Rebecca caught my hand. Alex, whatever happens with us, I want you to know I'm done with the deceptions. No more divided loyalties. I squeezed her hand briefly before letting go. That's a start. Walking back toward the courthouse where reporters were already gathering, I felt the weight of responsibility and possibility in equal measure. Howard's schemes had been exposed, the immediate threat to Eleanor's trust neutralized. But the harder work, rebuilding trust, determining the future of relationships damaged by betrayal, protecting the Foundation's mission for the long term, was just beginning. Nathan fell into step beside me as I approached the courthouse steps. "You okay?" "Getting there," I said, and was surprised to find it was true. "One crisis at a time." "That's the spirit," he grinned. "Now let's go tell the world what happens when you mess with Eleanor Peterson's legacy." Together, we climbed the steps to face the cameras, ready to begin the next chapter in a story that had taken turns none of us could have predicted. A story about protecting not just financial assets, but the values and vision they represented. Camera flashes erupted as I approached the podium outside the courthouse. Dozens of reporters had gathered, drawn by the dramatic fall of Howard Bennett, a prominent business figure now facing multiple fraud charges. Olivia stood to my right, a steadying presence as I prepared to make my first public statement as trustee of the Peterson Educational Foundation. "Good afternoon," I began, voice steadier than I felt. "My name is Alex Morgan, grandson of Eleanor Peterson and trustee of her estate. The events of the past few days have been difficult for all involved, but I want to be clear about our priorities moving forward." I paused, scanning the crowd. Near the back, I glimpsed Rebecca standing beside her mother, both watching intently. The Peterson Educational Foundation exists to support innovation in education and provide opportunities for students who might otherwise be left behind. That mission remains unchanged and will continue without interruption. The Foundation's assets are secure. Its grants and scholarships will be distributed as planned, and its work will proceed with renewed focus. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Morgan, will you pursue additional charges against Howard Bennett for attempting to defraud the Foundation?" "The criminal investigation is in the hands of the district attorney. My focus is solely on protecting my grandmother's legacy and ensuring the Foundation fulfills its purpose." Another voice called out, "What about Bennett Development? Will the Foundation continue any existing partnerships with the company?" "All business relationships will be reviewed to ensure they align with the Foundation's mission and values. Beyond that, I have no comment on Bennett Development's operations." I deliberately avoided mentioning Diane's new role in the company. "Mr. Morgan," a television reporter pushed forward, "sources say you only discovered your father-in-law's scheme by accident. Do you believe your wife was involved in the deception?" The question hit like a physical blow, though I'd prepared for it. Personal matters being dragged into public view was inevitable given the circumstances, but still painful. "I won't be discussing family matters. This is about protecting a charitable foundation, not airing private grievances." I nodded to Olivia, who stepped forward. "We'll take 2 more questions, and only about the Peterson Trust and Foundation," she stated firmly. After fielding questions about the Foundation's future plans and reassuring the public about the stability of its operations, I stepped away from the microphone. As the crowd dispersed, I noticed Tyler Bennett lingering nearby, his expression unreadable. "Quite a performance," he said as I approached. "The dedicated grandson protecting his inheritance." "It's not an inheritance, Tyler. It's a responsibility." He laughed without humor. "Always the moral high ground with you. Meanwhile, our family is being torn apart." "Your father did that, not me." "Did he? Or did you escalate what could have been a private family matter into a public spectacle?" "Those reporters are circling like vultures. Our stock has plummeted. Clients are canceling contracts." I studied my brother-in-law, trying to understand his perspective. "What did you expect would happen when Howard's schemes were exposed?" "They didn't need to be exposed," Tyler hissed. You could have negotiated privately, found a compromise. Instead, you've destroyed a company that employs hundreds of people. Bennett Development was built on solid foundations before Howard started cutting corners, I reminded him. It can recover under better leadership. Like my mother? Tyler scoffed. She may own the majority shares, but she doesn't understand the business like Dad does. Maybe that's exactly what the company needs. Someone who doesn't see manipulation and fraud as standard business practices. Tyler stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think you've won, don't you? That this is over? Dad may be down, but he's not out. He built contingency plans you haven't even imagined. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. This isn't some morality play where the good grandson triumphs over the evil father-in-law. Real life is messier. He glanced toward Rebecca and Diane, and casualties pile up on all sides. Before I could respond, Tyler walked away, heading toward his wife Megan, who waited by their luxury SUV, her designer sunglasses failing to hide her obvious distress. Olivia joined me, following my gaze. Don't let him get to you. Tyler has always been Howard's most devoted disciple. Do you think he's right? About Howard having contingency plans? Possibly. Men like Howard Bennett don't surrender easily. But whatever he planned, it's likely compromised now that he's in custody and under investigation. Nathan approached, laptop bag slung over his shoulder. The Foundation's servers have been secured, and I've upgraded all security protocols. If anyone tries to access sensitive information, we'll know immediately. Good, I nodded, because according to Tyler, this isn't over. Of course it isn't, Nathan agreed. But we're better prepared now than we were 2 days ago. As we walked toward the parking lot, Rebecca broke away from her mother and intercepted us. Alex, can I speak with you, alone? I hesitated, then nodded to Olivia and Nathan. I'll meet you back at the office. Rebecca waited until they were out of earshot. You did well up there. Grandmother would have been proud. The compliment surprised me. Thank you. I've been thinking about what you asked earlier, about who I want to be in all this. She took a deep breath. I want to be someone who makes things right, not someone who perpetuates harm. Starting with this. She handed me a manila envelope. These are copies of documents I found in Dad's home office last night. Plans for restructuring the foundation if he gained control. Names of board members he planned to install. Companies he intended to direct contracts toward. I accepted the envelope, stunned by this unexpected turn. Why are you giving me this? Because it's the right thing to do. Because Eleanor deserves better than to have her vision corrupted. And because, she faltered, because I want to be worthy of your trust again, even if that takes time. The moment felt pivotal, perhaps the first truly honest exchange we'd had since this ordeal began. This helps, Rebecca. Thank you. There's more, she continued. Tyler wasn't just making empty threats. Dad established offshore accounts years ago, with Tyler as the secondary signatory. I believe they've been moving assets there in preparation for this moment. How do you know this? Mom found documentation when she was gathering evidence. She's been quietly monitoring their financial maneuvers for months. This new information confirmed my suspicions about Howard's extensive contingency planning. Does Diane plan to report this? She's meeting with the district attorney this afternoon. Rebecca glanced toward her mother, who was now engaged in conversation with a court official. Mom's changed. Or maybe she's finally showing who she's always been underneath the compliant wife facade. People surprise you in crisis. I repeated my earlier observation. Rebecca nodded, a sad smile briefly crossing her face. For better or worse. She hesitated before continuing. I've retained separate legal counsel, by the way. Someone not connected to Bennett Development or Dad's networks. That's probably wise, I acknowledged, wondering where this was leading. They advised me to formally distance myself from Dad's actions, to make it clear I wasn't a knowing participant in his schemes. Understanding dawned. You're going to make a statement. A deposition initially, possibly public testimony later if this goes to trial. Her voice wavered slightly. I need to tell the truth, Alex, about what I knew, what I suspected, what I chose to ignore. It's the only way forward I can live with. The implications were significant. Rebecca testifying against her father would be seen as the ultimate betrayal in Howard's eyes. It would permanently alter her relationship with parts of her family, especially Tyler. Are you sure about this? The fallout will be painful. She finished for me. But continuing to live in a web of lies would be worse. She met my gaze directly. I've lived in Dad's shadow my entire life, measuring my choices against his approval. I don't want to be that person anymore. For the first time since discovering Howard's plot, I felt a genuine connection to the woman I'd married. This wasn't the Rebecca who had filed false statements about my grandmother, who had prioritized her father's schemes over honesty. This was someone finding her own moral compass, perhaps for the first time. Whatever happens next, I said carefully, I respect this decision. It wasn't forgiveness or reconciliation. Those would require more time and evidence of sustained change, but it was acknowledgement of a step in the right direction. Rebecca seemed to understand the limited nature of the gesture. Thank you. That means more than you know. She glanced at her watch. I should go. Mom and I are meeting with the company executives to discuss interim leadership while Dad's case proceeds. As she walked away, I felt the weight of the manila envelope in my hands, tangible evidence of Rebecca's changing allegiances. Whether it represented a genuine transformation or merely a strategic repositioning remained to be seen, but it was undeniably a turning point. Back at Olivia's office, we reviewed the documents Rebecca had provided. They painted a disturbing picture of what Howard had intended for the Peterson Educational Foundation if his plan had succeeded. Redirecting grants toward businesses with connections to Bennett development, installing board members who would rubber stamp his decisions, and gradually shifting the foundation's focus from education to broader community development, a term vague enough to encompass Howard's real estate projects. He would have gutted the foundation's mission within 5 years, Olivia observed, disgust evident in her voice, all while maintaining the Peterson name for legitimacy. The question is whether these documents help us legally, I said. They establish intent and premeditation, she confirmed. The district attorney will be very interested. They strengthen the case that Howard's attempts to gain control of the trust weren't just aggressive business tactics, but part of a calculated fraudulent scheme. Nathan, who had been examining the foundation restructuring plans, looked up. There's something else here. Look at these proposed board members. He pointed to several names. 3 of these people sit on the boards of companies that received suspicious payments from Bennett Development subsidiaries. Suggesting a wider network of co-conspirators, Olivia noted. The DA needs to see this immediately. As Olivia made arrangements to share the new evidence with prosecutors, my phone rang. Zoe Bennett's number. Uncle Alex? Her voice sounded small and strained. Is it true Grandpa's going to jail? I moved to a quiet corner of the office, unsure how to navigate this conversation. Hello, Zoe. Things are complicated right now. Your grandfather is in some legal trouble, but nothing's been decided yet. Dad's really angry. He keeps saying you betrayed the family. My heart sank. Tyler was involving his children in adult conflicts, just as Howard would have done. I'm sorry you're hearing those things. This situation is difficult for everyone. But Mom says Grandma is right, that Grandpa did bad things with money. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They're fighting a lot, Mom and Dad, about you and Grandpa and everything. I'm really sorry you're caught in the middle of adult problems, Zoe. None of this is your fault. I know. she said with surprising maturity. Mom explained that sometimes adults make bad choices, and then other adults have to make them stop. That's a good way to put it. Jake thinks you hate us now because of what Grandpa did. Her direct approach was typical of 12-year-olds, cutting straight to her concern. That's absolutely not true, I assured her. What's happening with your grandfather doesn't change how I feel about you and Jake at all. I'm still your uncle. Even if you and Aunt Rebecca get divorced? Dad says that's happening. The question caught me off guard. Rebecca and I hadn't discussed divorce explicitly, though separation seemed inevitable given recent events. Families can take many forms, Zoe. Even if adult relationships change, I'll always care about you and Jake. Promise? Because Jake's having nightmares about everyone going away. I promise. Would it help if I came to see you both soon? We could go for ice cream or something? Yes. Her enthusiasm was immediate. But not with Dad. He's too angry right now. I understand. Maybe with your mom? She'd be okay with it. She cried after watching you on TV today, but she said they were relieved tears, whatever that means. Megan's reaction surprised me. I'd assumed she was fully aligned with Tyler and Howard. Tell your mom to text me and we'll arrange something, okay? After ending the call, I rejoined Nathan and Olivia, my mind still processing this unexpected connection with the Bennett children. Everything okay? Nathan asked, noting my expression. Family complications, I said simply. The innocent? Bystanders in all this. Speaking of complications, Olivia interjected. The district attorney just called. Howard is requesting a meeting with you. With me? Why? He wouldn't say. But his attorney indicated he wants to discuss a family resolution that could benefit all parties. Another manipulation attempt, Nathan warned. He's desperate and looking for leverage. Or he genuinely wants to mitigate the damage. To his family, Olivia suggested, though her tone indicated skepticism. Either way, you're not obligated to meet with him. I considered the request. Howard was cornered, his schemes exposed, his freedom in jeopardy. What could he possibly offer now that would change anything? Yet curiosity tugged at me. What was his endgame? If I do meet with him, it would have to be with legal representation present, I said. I'd insist on it, Olivia agreed. And a full recording of the conversation. Tell them I'll consider it, I decided. But I need to know the specific purpose of the meeting before agreeing. As evening approached, we wrapped up our work at Olivia's office. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind, and exhaustion was setting in. Nathan offered his guest room again, but I decided it was time to return to my own home, a space I'd shared with Rebecca until this crisis erupted. Are you sure that's wise? Nathan asked. Rebecca might be there. She's staying with her parents, I reminded him. Besides, I need to start figuring out what normal looks like now. The house felt eerily quiet when I arrived. Everything remained exactly as I'd left it 2 days ago, yet everything had changed. Photos of Rebecca and me smiled from shelves and walls, images from a relationship now fundamentally altered. I moved through the rooms, reacquainting myself with the space, trying to imagine a future here either alone or in some new arrangement. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Mom and I met with company leadership. Tyler stormed out when Mom announced she's appointing new executive team. Things are volatile. Staying at parents' house tonight. Let me know when you're ready to talk about next steps for us. I didn't respond immediately, uncertain what next steps could possibly look like. Divorce seemed the obvious outcome given the depth of betrayal. Yet Rebecca's recent actions suggested a capacity for change I hadn't previously recognized. Did that change anything? Should it? As I contemplated these questions, another message arrived. From Diane. Thank you for your restraint at the press conference today. The road ahead is difficult enough without additional public spectacle. If you're willing, I'd like to discuss potential cooperation between the Foundation and a restructured Bennett development in the future. No pressure or obligation. The message reflected Diane's emerging leadership style, direct but not forceful, acknowledging boundaries while keeping doors open. Unlike Howard's approach of manipulation and pressure, Diane was offering genuine choice. I was pondering a response when my doorbell rang. Checking the security camera, I was surprised to see Megan Bennett on my doorstep, looking anxious and out of place. "Megan," I said, opening the door. "This is unexpected." "I know, and I'm sorry for coming unannounced. I wouldn't have except—" She glanced over her shoulder at her car where two small figures waited. "Zoe and Jake really wanted to see you, and Tyler doesn't know we're here." "You brought the kids? Now?" She looked embarrassed. "They've been worried about you. And after Zoe talked to you earlier, they just needed to see for themselves that you're okay, that you don't hate them." The simple human concern beneath all the legal and financial complications touched me. "Of course, bring them in." Zoe and Jake rushed from the car, both launching themselves at me with unexpected hugs. Jake, at 10, was normally too cool for such displays of affection, making the gesture all the more significant. "See?" Zoe told her brother triumphantly. "I told you Uncle Alex still likes us." "I was pretty sure," Jake muttered, attempting to recover his preteen dignity. "I just wanted to make sure." As we settled in the living room, the children's presence brought a warmth that had been missing. They chattered about school, friends, and normal kid concerns, temporarily pushing aside the adult crisis surrounding them. Megan watched them with a mixture of relief and sadness. "They needed this normality," she said quietly while the kids explored the backyard. "Everything's been chaos at home." "I can imagine." Tyler seemed intense at the courthouse. "That's one word for it." She sighed. "He's spiraling, Alex, caught between loyalty to Howard and the reality of what he's done. I think he knew about some of the financial irregularities, but not the extent of the fraud or the false medical records." "And you?" She met my gaze directly. "I created legal documents Howard requested. I didn't always question their purposes thoroughly, as I should have. That makes me complicit in some ways, which I'll have to answer for." Her candor was surprising. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of the deception. Because my children deserve better role models. And because," she took a deep breath, "I'm cooperating with the district attorney's investigation. Tyler doesn't know yet. Another Bennett family schism forming. That won't be an easy conversation." "No," she agreed, "but necessary. I keep asking myself what kind of example I'm setting for Zoe and Jake. Do I teach them that family loyalty means enabling wrongdoing? Or that integrity sometimes requires difficult choices?" It was the same fundamental question Rebecca seemed to be wrestling with. Where does family loyalty end and personal responsibility begin? The Bennett family was collectively facing a moral reckoning that had been long deferred. "What will you do if Tyler can't accept your decision?" I asked. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I can't keep participating in the fiction that Howard's actions were justified or minor." Jake and Zoe returned from the backyard, interrupting our conversation. Jake held up my basketball. "Can we play a quick game, like we used to?" For the next 30 minutes, we shot baskets in the driveway, the children's laughter a surreal counterpoint to the serious matters hanging over all our lives. Megan watched from the porch, occasionally checking her phone with increasing anxiety. "We should go," she finally called. "It's getting late." As they prepared to leave, Zoe hugged me again. "Will you still take us hiking sometime? Like you promised?" "Absolutely, as soon as things settle down a bit." Jake gave a small wave. "Tell Aunt Rebecca we miss her too." Their simple acceptance and resilience in the face of family upheaval was both heartbreaking and hopeful. As their car pulled away, I felt a renewed sense of purpose, not just to protect Eleanor's legacy, but to help minimize the collateral damage to innocent parties like Zoe and Jake. Inside, I found a missed call from Olivia. Her voicemail was brief but concerning. Alex, Howard's attorney, provided details about the requested meeting. He claims to have information about Eleanor that would change your understanding of the situation completely. Call me when you can. What information could Howard possibly have about my grandmother that I didn't already know? Was this another manipulation tactic, or did he genuinely have something significant to reveal? I called Olivia back immediately. What exactly did Howard say about Eleanor? Just that cryptic statement about changing your understanding. His attorney hinted it relates to Eleanor's intentions for the foundation and her relationship with Bennett Development in the years before her death. That's absurd. Grandma Eleanor was explicit about keeping her foundation independent from Howard's influence. I agree it sounds like a desperate ploy, but what? Olivia hesitated. Howard seems very confident about whatever this information is. His attorney mentioned documents Eleanor supposedly signed regarding future collaboration with Bennett Development. If such documents existed, we would have found them in her records or the trust documentation. Unless they were kept separate for some reason, Olivia pointed out. I don't want to alarm you unnecessarily, but we should at least hear what he claims to have. The suggestion that Eleanor might have had secret arrangements with Howard seemed preposterous. She had always been transparent about her intentions and cautious about business entanglements. Yet doubt crept in. Had there been aspects of her business dealings I wasn't privy to? Arrange the meeting, I decided. With all legal protections in place. Let's hear what Howard thinks he knows. After ending the call, I sat in my quiet house, surrounded by remnants of a life that no longer existed. Photos of happier times, souvenirs from trips with Rebecca, books we'd discussed together, all now colored by the knowledge of betrayal and hidden agendas. Yet amid the uncertainty and pain, new alliances were forming. Diane stepping into her power. Megan choosing integrity over enabling. Rebecca beginning to define herself separate from Howard's influence. Even the children, finding their way through adult conflicts with remarkable resilience. My phone chimed with a text from Nathan. Security alert at the foundation office. Someone attempted to access the server room 20 minutes ago. Police responding. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Just as Howard was requesting a meeting about supposed information regarding Eleanor, someone was trying to access foundation records. The connection seemed obvious. I called Nathan immediately. Any idea who it was? Security cameras caught a partial image. Looks like Tyler, but waiting for confirmation. He used an old access code that should have been deactivated. Was anything compromised? Don't think so. The enhanced security measures we installed blocked access. Seems like he was looking for specific files related to Eleanor's early planning for the foundation. The pieces were coming together. Howard put him up to it. He's searching for something to use as leverage in tomorrow's meeting. Exactly what I thought, Nathan agreed. Which means whatever Howard claims to have about Eleanor, he doesn't have actual documentation. He's fishing. Relief mixed with resolve. Keep the security measures at maximum. And forward the footage to Olivia. Tyler's actions may constitute attempted corporate espionage. Already done. This could add to Howard's legal troubles if he directed the attempt. After hanging up, I reviewed Eleanor's letter once more, the one she'd left explaining her concerns about Howard's interest in her assets. Nothing in it suggested any form of collaboration or arrangement with Bennett Development. On the contrary, she had been explicit about keeping the foundation independent from external business influences. Tomorrow's meeting with Howard would either reveal some genuinely unknown information about my grandmother, or more likely, expose one final desperate attempt at manipulation. Either way, I would face it with the truth of Eleanor's written intentions as my guide. As midnight approached, exhaustion finally overcame the day's tensions. Before sleeping, I sent a brief message to Rebecca. We should talk soon about those next steps. Not decisions yet, just conversation. Her response came quickly. Whenever you're ready, and thank you for being kind to Zoe and Jake today. Megan. Told me. It means more than you know. It was a small moment of connection amid the chaos, not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement that even in broken relationships, moments of humanity remained possible. Tomorrow would bring Howard's supposed revelations, more legal proceedings, and difficult conversations. But tonight, I found comfort in knowing that Eleanor's legacy was secure, that allies had emerged from unexpected places, and that truth, however painful in the short term, provided the only solid foundation for whatever came next. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Olivia's office as we prepared for the meeting with Howard. The district attorney had arranged for us to use a conference room at the courthouse, with recording equipment and legal representatives present. Whatever Howard planned to reveal about Eleanor, it would be thoroughly documented. Remember, Olivia cautioned as we reviewed our strategy, Howard is desperate. People in his position often make wild claims or promises they can't fulfill. Don't let him provoke an emotional response. I understand, I nodded, though uncertainty lingered. What could Howard possibly know about Eleanor that would change anything at this point? Nathan, who had spent the morning enhancing security at the foundation offices following Tyler's attempted breach, joined us with an update. All systems secure, and I've recovered the security footage. It definitely shows Tyler attempting to access files related to Eleanor's initial foundation planning, which suggests Howard doesn't actually have whatever documentation he's claiming, Olivia noted. Or he has something but needs additional context to make it useful, I suggested. Either way, we'll know soon enough. The courthouse corridors were quiet as we made our way to the designated meeting room. Howard was already there, wearing an orange jumpsuit rather than his usual tailored suit, a stark visual reminder of his changed circumstances. His attorney sat beside him, looking considerably less confident than during yesterday's hearing. Alex? Howard nodded as I entered with Olivia and the district attorney's representative. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I'm here to listen, I replied neutrally, taking a seat across from him. Your attorney mentioned information about my grandmother. Howard glanced at the recording equipment and the legal observers, before leaning forward. What I'm about to share may be difficult to hear, but it's important for preserving both our families' legacies. I remained silent, waiting. Eleanor and I had an arrangement, he continued, one that wasn't documented. In the formal trust papers, 3 years ago, she approached me about a potential collaboration between her foundation and Bennett Development. That's not consistent with anything Eleanor ever communicated to me, I replied evenly. Howard smiled thinly. She was a private woman, especially about business matters. Our discussions centered on developing the Cascade property as a mixed-use educational facility and residential community. She recognized that my company had the expertise to maximize the property's potential, while serving her educational mission. If such an agreement existed, where's the documentation? That's the complicated part, Howard admitted. Our arrangement was initially verbal, with formal paperwork to be executed when you turned 35 and assumed full control of the trust. Eleanor wanted the foundation established and operational before introducing commercial elements. His story sounded plausible on the surface, but contradicted everything I knew about Eleanor's intentions. Why wouldn't she mention this to me or to Olivia? Because she knew you might resist the idea of commercial development without understanding the full vision. She planned to introduce the concept gradually as you grew into your role as trustee. Olivia interjected. Mr. Bennett, as Eleanor's attorney for over 20 years, I find it difficult to believe she would make such arrangements without legal counsel. Howard's attorney finally spoke up. Ms. Peterson consulted with another attorney for these discussions, Martin Reynolds from Westlake Partners. We have copies of correspondence confirming preliminary discussions. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were several emails between Eleanor and Martin Reynolds, discussing potential collaboration options and development partnerships for foundation properties. The emails were dated approximately 3 years ago, around the time Eleanor had updated her trust provisions. These are genuine emails, I acknowledged after reviewing them carefully, but they don't specifically mention Bennett Development or any concrete agreements. There's more, Howard said. Eleanor and I met several times at the Cascade property to discuss development concepts. She was particularly interested in creating housing for educators adjacent to the planned Nature Education Center. Something about this detail caught my attention. When exactly did these meetings take place? Throughout the summer 3 years ago, June through August primarily. I exchanged glances with Olivia, who nodded slightly. That's interesting, Howard, because Eleanor was undergoing cancer treatment during those months. She barely left her home, let alone traveled to the Cascade property for multiple meetings. Howard's confident expression faltered momentarily before recovering. Perhaps it was the following summer. My timeline may be off. Your timeline is deliberately misleading, I stated flatly. Just like these emails, which discuss potential partnerships in general terms but make no mention of specific agreements with you or your company. The discussions were preliminary. They were non-existent. I cut him off. Eleanor explored various options for developing the foundation's properties, including consulting with multiple attorneys about legal structures for potential partnerships, but she ultimately decided against commercial collaboration. Howard's attorney shifted uncomfortably. My client has been clear that the arrangement was informal. Your client is attempting to fabricate a connection that never existed, Olivia interjected. These emails are genuinely from Eleanor, but they represent early exploratory discussions that never progressed to any agreement with Bennett Development. In fact, she pulled out her tablet, I have Eleanor's notes from her meeting with Martin Reynolds, where she specifically rejected the partnership model as too susceptible to mission drift. Howard's confident facade cracked further, his desperation becoming more evident. Alex, think about the possibilities here. Even if formal agreements weren't finalized, Eleanor was clearly open to development partnerships. The foundation could still benefit enormously from Bennett Development's expertise. Even with you facing fraud charges, even after you attempted to falsify medical records to invalidate her trust conditions, business and personal matters can be separated, he insisted. The company can proceed under new leadership while still honoring the collaborative vision Eleanor and I discussed. I studied Howard carefully, the man who had welcomed me into his family while plotting to exploit my grandmother's legacy. Even now, facing serious criminal charges, he was attempting to manipulate the situation to his advantage. There is no collaborative vision to honor, Howard. These emails prove nothing except that Eleanor conducted due diligence before ultimately creating trust conditions that specifically prevent the kind of development you're proposing. The district attorney's representative, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. Mr. Bennett, attempting to misrepresent your relationship with Ms. Peterson could be considered an additional count of attempted fraud. Howard's attorney quickly intervened. My client is not making claims of binding agreements, merely discussing historical conversations that informed his business approach. A convenient reframing, Olivia noted dryly. I'd heard enough. Is there anything else you wanted to discuss, Howard? Any other fictional arrangements with my grandmother you'd like to invent? His expression hardened. You think you've won, don't you? That Eleanor's precious foundation will continue untainted by commercial interests? The reality is, That without proper development partnerships, those properties will never reach their full potential. That's not for you to decide. It never was. Howard leaned forward, dropping all pretense of collaboration. You've turned my family against me. My wife, my daughter, even my daughter-in-law. Was that worth it, Alex? Destroying relationships? To protect some idealistic notion of what Eleanor wanted? You destroyed those relationships yourself, Howard, through lies, manipulation, and fraud. The people closest to you finally saw who you really are. And what about your marriage? Was that worth sacrificing too? His tone grew bitter. Rebecca may be confused now, influenced by her mother's surprising rebellion, but blood runs deeper than you think. Eventually, she'll remember where her true loyalties lie. The naked attempt to create doubt about Rebecca's sincerity was Howard's last card to play. If that happens, it will be her choice, I replied calmly. Unlike you, I don't believe in manipulating people's decisions. This meeting is over, the district attorney's representative announced, signaling to the recording technician. Mr. Bennett will be returned to custody. As Howard was led away by security personnel, he called over his shoulder, This isn't finished, Alex. Not by a long shot. His attorney lingered briefly. Off the record, he's facing serious charges with substantial evidence against him. A plea deal is his best option at this point. That's between Howard and the district. Attorney, I replied. My only concern is protecting Eleanor's legacy. Outside the courthouse, sunshine had given way to Portland's characteristic rain, matching my somber mood. The meeting had confirmed what I'd suspected. Howard had nothing substantive about Eleanor, just another desperate attempt at manipulation. You handled that well, Olivia commented as we walked to her car. Howard's attempt to fabricate a collaboration story was predictable, but still concerning. The emails were genuine, I noted. Eleanor really did consult with Reynolds about partnership structures. Of course she did, Olivia smiled. Eleanor was thorough in her planning. She explored multiple options before deciding on the trust structure she ultimately created. That's entirely different from having an arrangement with Howard. Which is why Tyler was trying to access the foundation files. They were looking for something to make their story more convincing. Nathan, who had been monitoring foundation security remotely during our meeting, joined us with an update. Tyler tried again this morning. Different approach, same result. He's getting desperate. Like father, like son, Olivia observed. My phone buzzed with a message from Diane. Howard's meeting didn't go as planned, I hear. Tyler's behavior is concerning. Can we meet to discuss next steps for both families? The request seemed reasonable. Diane had proven herself an unexpected ally throughout this ordeal. I'm going to meet with Diane, I told Olivia and Nathan. She may have insights about what Howard and Tyler might try next. Diane suggested meeting at a small cafe away from both family homes and business locations, neutral territory. When I arrived, she was already seated in a corner booth, looking remarkably composed despite the chaos engulfing her family. Thank you for coming, she said as I joined her. I expect Howard's meeting was another attempt at manipulation. He claimed to have had a secret collaboration agreement with Eleanor, produced some emails that showed preliminary discussions but nothing concrete. Diane sighed. Howard has always excelled at creating narratives from fragments of truth. It's what made him successful in business and destructive in personal relationships. You seem remarkably clear-eyed about him now, I observed. Necessity breeds clarity, she replied. I've had to see Howard without illusions to make the decisions needed for the company's survival. She took a sip of her tea before continuing. Which brings me to the purpose of this meeting. Tyler is following his father's path toward self-destruction. The server break-in attempts. She nodded. Among other things, he's been contacting investors trying to raise capital to save the company from Diane's mismanagement. He's accessing accounts he shouldn't have access to. Essentially, he's continuing Howard's patterns. Have you confronted him? I've removed his access and authority, which has only intensified his behavior. Megan is frightened, not for herself, but for the children. Tyler's anger is consuming him. The parallels to Howard were striking. What can I do? 2 things, Diane said decisively. First, I want to establish a clear boundary between Bennett Development and the Peterson Foundation. A formal acknowledgement that we have no claims on your grandmother's assets or properties. This should help discourage further desperate attempts by Howard or Tyler. And second, I'd like your help reaching Tyler, not as Howard's son-in-law, but as someone who cares about this family's future. He respects you, even if he'd never admit it now. The request surprised me. Why would he listen to me? I'm the person he blames for Howard's downfall. Because you've consistently prioritized truth over expedience, and because you've shown genuine concern for Zoe and Jake throughout this mess. Diane's expression softened. Children often see what adults miss, Alex. They know you're trustworthy, even when their father can't admit it. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an urgent message from Nathan. Financial alert. Large transfers initiated from Foundation. Accounts. Someone's using Eleanor's old passwords. I need to go, I told Diane, showing her the message. Someone's attempting to access Foundation funds. Her expression darkened. Tyler. It has to be. Howard must have given him information about Eleanor's accounts. How would Howard have Eleanor's passwords? Rebecca mentioned once that Howard kept detailed notes on everyone in the family, birthdays, anniversaries, personal information. He called it good business practice to remember personal details. The implication was clear. Howard had been collecting potential password information on Eleanor for years, preparing for this moment. I called Nathan immediately. Can you block the transfers? Working on it. They're being routed through multiple accounts. Sophisticated approach. This isn't amateur hour. It's Tyler Bennett, likely using information from Howard. Alert. The bank's fraud department and the authorities. I turned to Diane. I need to handle this. We'll have to continue our conversation later. She stood, gathering her belongings. I'm coming with you. If Tyler's behind this, I need to be involved. Together, we raced to the Foundation offices, where Nathan was working with bank security to trace and block the attempted transfers. The Foundation's chief financial officer had also been called in, looking shell-shocked by the development. Almost $3 million in attempted transfers, Nathan reported. We've blocked most of it, but approximately $600,000 got through before we caught it. It's being traced now. How did they access the accounts? I asked. Eleanor's email was compromised. First, which gave them access to password reset functions. The passwords used suggest someone with detailed knowledge of her personal information. Birthdays, pet names, addresses. Diane looked grim. That's Howard's influence. He's been collecting that kind of information for years. The Foundation's CFO pulled up additional details. The transfers were directed to accounts associated with Horizon Partners LLC, a company registered just 3 days ago. That's one of the names in Howard's restructuring plans, I realized, remembering the documents Rebecca had provided. He established shell companies in advance, preparing for this moment. Nathan pointed to his screen. The IP address for the account access traces to... He looked up at Diane apologetically. The Bennett residence. Diane closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this confirmation of her son's involvement. I'll call the police myself. This has to stop before Tyler destroys his entire future. As Diane stepped away to make the call, Rebecca arrived, having been contacted by Nathan. Is it true? Tyler's stealing from the Foundation? It appears so, I confirmed. Using information Howard collected about your grandmother's accounts. Her expression crumpled. I don't understand how it came to this. How my father and brother could. She trailed off, overwhelmed by the escalating destruction within her family. People make desperate choices when they're losing control, I said, finding myself in the unexpected position of offering her comfort despite our complicated situation. Tyler's following the patterns Howard established. Rebecca composed herself, with visible effort. What can I do to help? The authorities will need information about how Howard might have obtained Eleanor's personal details. Any conversations you remember? Notes you might have seen? She nodded determinedly. I'll write everything down. And I'll call Megan. She should get the children away from the house before the police arrive. As Rebecca made her call, Olivia arrived with representatives from the district attorney's office. The foundation breach had escalated the legal situation significantly, potentially adding charges of computer fraud and grand theft. Howard's plea negotiations just got more complicated, Olivia noted. If he provided information that facilitated this theft attempt, he's looking at additional charges even if he didn't directly participate. The next few hours passed in a blur of police statements, financial tracing, and security enhancements. By evening, we had confirmation that Tyler had been taken into custody at the Bennett home, while most of the transferred funds had been recovered or frozen in transit. Megan arrived at the foundation offices with Zoe and Jake, having removed them from the house before the police arrived. The children looked confused and frightened, sensing the gravity of the situation without fully understanding it. Dad was yelling and typing really fast on his computer, Jake reported, his young face serious. He told us to go to our rooms, but we could hear everything. Zoe added, he said Grandpa needed help and sometimes families have to break rules. In emergencies. It scared me. Diane knelt to her grandchildren's level. Your dad is confused right now, and he's made some mistakes. But we're going to figure this out together, okay? As Diane comforted the children, Rebecca pulled me aside. I never imagined it would come to this. Criminal charges against both my father and brother. Neither did I admitted. I only wanted to protect Eleanor's legacy, not destroy your family. You didn't destroy anything, Alex. Dad's choices did that. Tyler's choices. She met my gaze directly. My choices too when I went along with their plans instead of standing up for what was right. Her accountability was a marked change from the woman who had filed false statements about Eleanor's mental capacity just days ago. Whether this transformation would last remained to be seen, but it seemed genuine in this moment. What happens now? Rebecca asked quietly. To all of us? It was the question that had been hanging between us since the first revelations of Howard's schemes. Legally, Howard and Tyler will face consequences for their actions. The foundation will recover and continue Eleanor's mission. Bennett Development will rebuild under your mother's leadership. And us? You and me? I considered my answer carefully. I don't know, Rebecca. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. We need time, separately, to figure out who we are beyond Howard's influence. Pain flickered across her face, but she nodded. I understand. For what it's worth, I'm committed to changing the patterns I learned from Dad. To being someone worthy of trust again, whether or not our marriage survives. It was the most honest conversation we'd had since this ordeal began. Not promises of reconciliation, but acknowledgement of the difficult road ahead. As twilight settled over Portland, decisions were made for the immediate future. Megan and the children would stay with Diane at her separate residence. Rebecca would return to our house temporarily to collect personal items before moving to an apartment. The foundation offices would remain under enhanced security while financial systems were thoroughly reviewed. 6 weeks later, I stood at Eleanor's grave, placing fresh flowers beside her headstone. The early summer breeze rustled through nearby trees as I updated her on recent developments. Howard accepted a plea deal, I told her, as if she could hear. 5 years with possibility of parole plus financial restitution. Tyler got 3 years probation and community service after Diane intervened on his behalf. The foundation is thriving. We've expanded the scholarship program just as you wanted. The legal proceedings had concluded more quickly than expected. Howard, facing overwhelming evidence and multiple charges, had finally accepted reality and taken the plea offered. Tyler, guided by new legal counsel and his mother's influence, had made full confession and shown genuine remorse for his actions. Bennett Development was slowly rebuilding under Diane's leadership, with Megan taking a more prominent role in project management. The company had formally relinquished any claims to Peterson Properties and established ethical business practices. That would have been unrecognizable under Howard's leadership. "Alex?" a voice called from nearby. I turned to see Rebecca approaching cautiously, also carrying flowers. "I didn't know you'd be here. I can come back later." "It's fine," I assured her. "I was just finishing." In the weeks since Tyler's arrest, Rebecca and I had maintained limited contact, primarily through attorneys as we navigated the initial stages of separation. She had started therapy to address the patterns of enabling and conflict avoidance she'd developed in Howard's shadow. I had focused on establishing the foundation's new initiatives while processing my own complicated feelings about our marriage. "How are you?" she asked, placing her flowers beside mine. "Busy. The foundation's new educational technology grants are launching next month." I saw the announcement. Eleanor would be proud. We stood in awkward silence for a moment before Rebecca spoke again. "I've been thinking about her a lot lately. How clearly she saw through Dad's schemes when I couldn't, or wouldn't. She had the advantage of distance and experience." Rebecca nodded. "And independence. Something I'm learning about now." She hesitated before continuing. "I've accepted a teaching position in Seattle. A fresh start, away from Portland and all the history." "Seattle?" The news caught me by surprise. "When do you leave?" "Next month, once our house sale finalizes." She gave a sad smile. "The divorce papers came through yesterday. Your attorney probably has them by now." Though we'd been moving in this direction for weeks, the finality of divorce papers still carried emotional weight. "That's good. Clear resolution is better for everyone." "Is it weird that I'm both devastated and relieved?" Rebecca asked, her honesty disarming. "Our marriage was real for me, Alex, but it was also built on a foundation that included my father's influence and my own willingness to look the other way." "Not weird at all," I assured her. "I feel similarly. What we had was genuine in many ways, but it couldn't survive once the truth emerged." She touched Eleanor's headstone gently. "She tried to warn you about Dad, about all of it." "She tried to protect what she built, yes. But she also understood that people can change, that they can choose different paths than those laid out for them. Like Mom did, like I'm trying to do now." We began walking back toward the cemetery entrance, the conversation flowing more naturally than it had in months. Rebecca updated me on Zoe and Jake, who were adjusting to their new family configuration with typical childhood resilience. I shared news about the foundation's expanding work and Olivia's retirement plans. At her car, Rebecca paused. "I know we're ending our marriage, but I hope someday we might find a way to be not enemies." "We're not enemies now," I pointed out. "No, but we're not friends either. Not yet. Maybe someday." The possibility hung between us. Not reconciliation, but perhaps eventually a different kind of relationship built on honesty, rather than manipulation and hidden agendas. "Maybe someday," I agreed. "Good luck in Seattle, Rebecca. I mean that sincerely." She smiled, the expression more genuine than I'd seen in months. "Good luck with Eleanor's legacy, Alex. Keep building what she started. It matters." As Rebecca drove away, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. The journey that had begun with an overheard conversation about inheritance had transformed multiple lives, revealing both the worst and best in the people involved. Howard would serve his time. Tyler would rebuild his life under his mother's guidance. Diane had discovered leadership abilities she never knew she possessed. Megan had chosen integrity over enablement. And Rebecca had begun the difficult work of defining herself beyond her father's influence. The Peterson Educational Foundation would continue Eleanor's vision, supporting innovation in education and providing opportunities for students who might otherwise be overlooked. The trust she had established, both literal and figurative, would be honored. My phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. Foundation Board approved the new technology initiative unanimously. Celebration dinner tonight? Life was moving forward. Not in the direction I had once envisioned with Rebecca, but towards something equally meaningful, a legacy worth protecting, relationships based on genuine connection rather than manipulation, and the knowledge that standing for truth, however painful initially, created the only sustainable foundation for whatever came next. "Thank you, Grandma," I said quietly, looking back toward Eleanor's grave, "for the wisdom to prepare for Howard's schemes, for the courage to face difficult truths, and for the understanding that family, true family, is defined by actions rather than blood or legal ties." As I walked to my car, Portland's summer sunshine broke through the clouds, casting long shadows across the cemetery grounds. Like Eleanor had written in her final letter, true family is defined by actions, not blood or marriage certificates. Through this painful journey, I had discovered exactly what she meant, and found my own unexpected family of allies committed to protecting what mattered most. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.